Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We're out here today with Shadowfax, who's ignoring me because he can. But we're out here to talk about mini horses, specifically about dressing for the show ring and navigating the show when it comes to driving. So, in today's video, we're continuing our miniature horse driving series with a focus on show ring turnout and procedure. What you should wear, how to prep for your class, and what actually happens once you get into the ring. Because sometimes you're a little surprised. So if you've ever looked at show photos and wondered, wait, are they really wearing a ball gown? The answer is, yeah, sometimes. But don't worry, you do not need to wear a ball gown to compete. So let's talk about what you do need, how to make sure you and your horse look the part, and how to handle yourself confidently at the show. And I promise, you don't need a ball gown. In some classes, you could wear a ball gown, but you don't need one. So let's start by talking about what to wear in the driving ring. So what you wear in the ring depends on three main things. First is the level of competition that you've entered. And second is the class you've entered. The class matters. And your overall turnout and style, by which I mean how your tack looks, how your cart looks. All of this matters as well. You don't want a huge mismatch between how you look and how your horse looks. You want kind of a cohesive look. So a lot of it is going to be determined by what exactly your horse looks like. What is he wearing? His getup, right? All his tack and what your cart looks like. At the World Show, you might see someone in a full ball gown for a single pleasure driving class. At a local event, it might be a nice Western shirt and a cowboy hat for Western country pleasure class. Some of the classes have very long names. But whatever the style, your clothing should do two things for you. It should match the tone of the class and your cart setup, and it should be comfortable for you to drive in. Remember, even though you're riding in a cart, you're still doing some work. You're still guiding the horse, controlling the horse. You don't want to be wearing something that restricts your movement and makes it difficult for you to do what you need to do. Okay? Because here's the thing. What looks great when you're standing might feel terrible when you're seated in the cart, and you could spend a fair bit, hi Arwen, but you could spend a fair bit of time seated in the cart, especially as you're waiting. There's a lot of waiting involved. So before the show, always try on your outfit while sitting in the cart, not just on your couch. How you sit in a chair, this is one of my lawn chairs, how you sit in one of your lawn chairs or on your couch is very different than how you sit in the cart, right? So sit in the cart in the getup you've chosen. Hold your hands like you're holding the reins. Put the reins in your hands. Can you move easily? Can you steer and adjust and sit comfortably for several minutes at a time without having to get up? Because you're going to have to. This is especially important if you're wearing fitted clothes, have long sleeves, or anything with accessories. You need to make sure it's comfortable because comfort and mobility matter just as much as appearance, sometimes even more. So make sure that you're comfortable. There's Shadowfax. Eating hay. He loves his hay. That's why he's a little bit of a trunkster. So now let's talk about hats, helmets, and other headwear. Hats. A hat is traditional in driving classes, but it's typically not required. Now, check the guidelines of your show that you've entered. Actually pick up the rule book and check, because sometimes a rule will surprise you that you haven't seen before. And in most classes, pretty much any class, you can wear a helmet if you choose. And this is not a bad choice, especially if you're new to driving or you're just nervous. It's okay to be a little nervous, okay? And if you're working a green horse who tends to spook and send you tumbling, a helmet might be a good choice. But it's personal choice. You are not required to wear a helmet, but it's an option. If you do wear a hat, make sure it fits snugly and won't blow off or shift around. Okay, there's nothing more annoying than driving and whew, there goes your hat. Make sure it's snug. Okay. Remember that once you're in the ring, you're in motion and you won't be able to adjust your outfit mid class. Okay. You're not going to be able to like, hey, everyone hang on. I got to get out of the cart, fix my outfit, pick up my hat and continue. So make sure you're comfortable and everything is where it's supposed to be and will stay where it's supposed to during the entirety of your run. Okay. You can't get out and adjust your clothes. Now, before your class, you'll usually have a chance to warm up with your horse. This might take place in a designated warm-up ring or even in the show ring itself, depending on the show setup and how large that show is. There is a lot of chicken noises coming from right behind me and turkeys. There's a lot happening. There's a lot happening, and there's chickens over there. There's quite a lot happening. I'm just going to ignore them. So, a rather large show will probably have a separate ring designated for warming up. A smaller show, you might just do it in the main ring. That's Turkey. Turkey. Don't worry about it. That's Turkey. He's leaving. But if you do use the main ring for warm-ups, use that time wisely. The goal is to help your horse settle, stretch, and get comfortable with the space and the sights. Warming up isn't just about the muscles. In fact, it's not even primarily about the muscles. It's about the mindset for both you and the horse. Let your horse get used to the noise and the footing, the crowd, decorations and distractions, and whatever else might be in the ring. At most shows, driving warm-ups happen about 10 minutes before your class section begins. If you're the last class section in a long division, like Country Pleasure, for example, chickens just ran past me. Okay. But if you are, if you're in the last class in a long division like Country Pleasure, plan ahead. You'll want to warm up before the first class in that section starts, not right before yours. Okay. What about ring entry and expectations? First of all, be ready when the class is called. They're not going to wait for you. You don't want to be scrambling to get to the gate, and if you're not there, they're just going to go. Okay? They're not on your schedule, you're on theirs. For pleasure driving classes, generally, now, all of these rules have exceptions depending on the show. Okay? So, check the rule book. Typically, when you enter a show, you get a rule book. Often these days, it's emailed in PDF form. Check it, read it cover to cover, because all of these rules have exceptions. So I'll say something like, for pleasure driving classes, you'll enter the ring counterclockwise. And somebody will pop in and go, yeah, well, my local show did it clockwise. Yes, that happens sometimes. But the vast majority of pleasure driving classes, you will enter the ring counterclockwise. However, if it's a roadster class, you'll enter clockwise most of the time. I know there are exceptions. Once inside, listen closely to the announcer. They'll call for specific gaits and maneuvers, okay? In most classes, you'll be asked to show your horse at a walk and a trot in both directions. Judges are watching for consistency, okay? They also want obedience and quality of movement, not just how flashy your horse looks. So a super flashy horse versus one who is doing exactly what he's asked to do when he's asked to do it, well, the super flashy may not win because he's looking good, but he's not as efficient as the other guy. You'll also be asked to line up when directed, and in most classes, to back your horse. Make sure your horse is responsive and steady for this. Backing is one of those small details that can make a big difference, especially in driving classes. A lot of people don't practice backing at all. You're not going to have to back up much, and you're not going to have to do anything fancy when you're backing up because that would be too much to expect. But you are going to have to, in most classes or in many classes, back it up a little, okay? So make sure your horse is comfortable with that. Now I want to talk about the header. Header is a person, okay? A lot of times when people are talking about a header, they don't specify that it's a person. they skip past that part and then tell you all the other stuff and leave you to infer that it's a person. It's a person. So if you're showing a youth entry, you'll be required to have a header. This is a person who stands at the horse's head in the lineup, ready to assist if needed. That's because youth exhibitors don't have the experience of adult exhibitors in many cases. Some youth do. Some youth have been doing it longer than adults have. But in many cases, the youths are less experienced. They don't respond as well to the unexpected. So a header is there just as a bit of safety. For adult exhibitors, sometimes headers are optional and sometimes they're not allowed at all. Again, rule book, check. So once you're in the lineup, your header can enter the ring and stand near your horse's head. They should be dressed appropriately, either in show attire or a plain white unmarked smock, okay? Sometimes they just are wearing a white smock. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And they must wear proper footwear. You could get stepped on by a mini horse and it hurts. Gotta wear proper footwear. Even if you don't need a header yourself, it's worth understanding the role they play, especially if you plan to show youth or if you plan to help someone else in the future. So know that a header is just there for assistance. In most cases, the header doesn't have to do anything. They just stand there at the head of the horse, prepared to act if something happens. So in most cases, the header's just... Thank you, everyone. But in most cases, the header is just there. Okay, they generally don't have to do anything. But it's worth understanding what a header is and what they sometimes do. That wraps up our second video in this miniature horse driving series. We've covered what to wear, how to prepare, and what to expect once you're actually in the show ring. In the next video, we're going to dive into some of the different classes in driving, like single pleasure, country pleasure, classic pleasure. A lot of them are pleasure classes, and help you decide which one might be the best fit for your miniature horse. Not all minis are good at all classes. That's about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. If you've ever had a wardrobe fail in the show ring or want to share your favorite show outfit, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your stories. We'll see you tomorrow. They're going to keep crowing.